An unborn human being, product of human conception, is an innocent human person. An abortion is the deliberate killing of that person. What is an abortion? You can't argue about abortion unless you ask what it is. And if you say, I don't know what anything is, I'm a skeptic, then you don't argue anything at all. You don't even know what an apple is. Is a fetus a person? Well, is a teenager a person? Is an adult a person? These words, fetus, teenager, embryo, adult, are nouns that come from adjectives. Embryonic human, embryo. Fetal human, fetus. Infantile human, infant. Childish human, child. Teenage human, human. These are stages of development. Of what? Of one entity. So what is that entity? Philosophically, it seems that that's the crucial issue, because most moralists would agree that the first premise is true. If deliberately killing an innocent person isn't wrong, what is wrong? So it seems that the strongest pro-life case would be to deny that abortion kills a person. All right, when do you become a person? Is it a gradual process, or does it happen suddenly? It's got to be one or the other. Well, if it happens suddenly, at what point? Well, according to the law of the land, it's birth. When the doctor's scissors cuts the umbilical cord, you become a person. The scissors makes you a person. When you move from one room to another, you become a person. When you move from your mother's womb to the larger room called the world, that's when you become a person. So the external environment makes you a person. Or maybe technology makes you a person. If you're viable, that is, if you can live outside the womb, that makes you a person. Well, viability depends on the technology available to keep you alive. In the jungle, you're not a person. In a hospital, you are. That doesn't make much sense. So if it's not the scissors that makes you a person, what is it? Well, every biology textbook in the world before Roe v. Wade was not in doubt in answering the question, when does an individual life of any mammalian species begin? The answer is when the genetic code is complete. When instead of the haploid ovum and the haploid sperm, you get the diploid embryo. And at that point, something happens that is totally different, because the thing that's there seems totally different. Cells replicate immeasurably, and a pattern emerges, and gradually organs develop. Granted, there's nothing like a human brain in an embryo, but a human embryo grows a human brain. And an ape embryo grows an ape brain. And a bird embryo grows a bird brain. So that's a bird embryo, not an ape embryo. That's a human embryo, not an ape embryo. Even though it doesn't yet have a brain and can't think. Well, maybe this absolute dividing line of conception or fertilization is too simple. Maybe it's a gradual process. Maybe person is not either or. Maybe you gradually become more of a person. All right, in that case, it's not so bad to kill somebody who doesn't have all their systems in place, like a child whose reproductive systems are still immature, as it is to kill an adult. Does anybody seriously believe that it's not as bad to kill an 8-year-old as an 18-year-old? Of course not. Well, the process of growth and development doesn't begin at birth. It begins at conception. And part of it takes place in the 9 months in the womb, and then the rest of it takes place in the years after the womb. There is no point during that process where you see any absolute breaks. I hesitate to argue this way because once I thought I won an argument and I really lost one, because often that happens. You win the argument, you lose the person. Sometimes you lose the argument, you win the person. I was arguing with a very intelligent pro-choice feminist, and I argued, give me one argument that defends abortion that doesn't also defend infanticide. And we argued for a while, and I thought it was going nowhere. But afterwards, she came up to me and said, I didn't think you could do this, but you convinced me. You made me change my mind. I said, oh, really? Congratulations for seeing the logic. She said, yeah, now I'm for infanticide. So sometimes logic is dangerous. The conclusion of this argument is, of course, that if it is always wrong to deliberately kill an innocent person, and if abortion deliberately kills an innocent person, then abortion is always wrong. Always. Just as rape is always wrong. There's an addition to the argument, a third premise that you can add, that brings it into the social, political, and legal area. Some people will say, there's nothing wrong with this argument, but I still don't want to legally force my views on people who don't agree with me. I'm personally opposed to abortion, but I wouldn't make it illegal. So why do I also believe not only that it is immoral, but that it ought to be illegal? Not everything that's immoral ought to be illegal. The structure of legal reasoning has a moral premise, but then it has a legal premise. If a thing is not morally bad, we don't want to prohibit it by law. But some things that are morally bad, we don't want to prohibit by law. Maybe smoking is morally bad. Maybe it's irresponsible. I don't think there should be a law against smoking. Maybe not wearing a seatbelt is bad, irresponsible. I don't know whether it's a good idea or not, but I'm sympathetic to those who say there shouldn't be a law about seatbelts. I don't think smoking marijuana is a good idea, but I'm not sure whether illegalizing it is a good idea or not. Maybe so, maybe not. So you have to add a legal premise to the moral premise to get the conclusion that this thing that is morally wrong ought also to be legally forbidden. All right, so what's the purpose of law? Law is to protect people. If law doesn't do that minimal job, it's not doing anything. Law has to at least protect the innocent and weak against the guilty and strong. Nobody seriously maintains that there shouldn't be laws against theft, rape, or slavery, because those are clearly cases of misusing human beings, oppression. Well, the legal premise that can be added to this argument is that the law must protect the rights of the innocent and weak against the powerful and strong. Well, if abortion is killing a person, and if that person is innocent and weak, shouldn't he be protected? I used to call myself a liberal back in the days of the Civil Rights Movement because I was on the side of the poor and the oppressed. Blacks and women and the poor, and they had to be liberated. They had equal rights, they were the little guy. I still feel that way very strongly. And that's precisely the reason why now I vote, and now I'm going to say an obscenity, I suppose it will be, Republican. A lot of things I don't like about the Republicans. But at least they don't justify this slaughter. I think I'm against capital punishment too, and I agree with the liberals there. I tend to be very suspicious of conservatives because they don't show a sensitivity to conserving things like the environment. But those issues pale in insignificance if abortion is what I've just described. If it is the legalized murder of 1 million of our children every year. So that's the judgment call. I'm personally opposed, but I wouldn't want to make it illegal. That sounds a little bit like Pontius Pilate. I'm personally opposed to crucifying innocent people, but on the other hand, I wash my hands of responsibility here. That's almost like saying I'm personally opposed to slavery, but I'm pro-choice. If you want to have slaves, go ahead. I want to ask one of these politicians, why are you personally opposed to abortion? Is it because you believe that abortion is the deliberate killing of an innocent person? If not, why are you personally opposed to abortion? It's yucky? Like you're personally opposed to yogurt? If abortion doesn't kill a human life, I agree with the pro-choicers. It is an intolerable oppression of women's freedom and women's bodies to tell them what to do. If that's their body and not somebody else's body, you have no right to tell them what to do. But if it's somebody else's body, well, they have no right to kill that other person. Well, there's 3 kinds of pro-choice arguments. How do you get out of this syllogism of mine? There's 3 premises. There's the moral premise, there's the factual premise, and there's the legal premise. You can deny any one of the 3 premises, and these are the main 3 escape clauses.